Hello everyone, my name is Loco, and welcome back to a professional match of StarCraft 2. Now what I've got for you today is a best of 5 series of Zerg versus Terran. We're in the bottom left-hand corner of Ultra Love, playing with the blue SCVs. We're looking inside of the main base of Cure, and his opponent in the top right with the red Zerg drones. He goes by the name of Rogue. Alrighty, now this particular best of 5 is an elimination match from the Esports World Cup. So, a $700,000 tournament. Who loses this goes home. Who wins this moves on in the event. Now, spoiler alert, neither of these two ended up winning the EWC this year. But this is one of those games that I did not get a close look at just yet. So, we'll have to, figure out exactly what ended up going down between these two. Because in my mind, Rogue's Zerg versus Terran is really good. And historically, Cure's Terran versus Zerg has been relatively weak. Cure's TVP and his TVT, but especially his Terran versus Protoss, have always been his strongest matchup. But from what I understand, he's really been stepping it up over the last couple of months. I think across the board, Rogue's Zerg versus Protoss is not nearly as good as his Zerg versus Terran. So we should have a player here who's really good against Terran, going up against a player here who's really quite weak against Zerg. And from what I understand, the results here are going to be a little bit different than many people would have expected. And I'm curious to see what sort of strategy, here Cure decides to go for. It's going to be a barracks right now into a command center on the low ground. And in the meantime, on the other side of the map, it's a hatch into a gas into a spawning pool. We'll be returning the minerals here. I wonder if Cure is a Cyclone guy. Many Terrans out there right now, especially ladder heroes, are Cyclone guys. We've seen it a lot, especially from the Korean Terran players. Not that the Europeans and the North Americans are shying away from it, but if you look at, for example, Clem, he doesn't really seem to play Cyclones nearly as much as you would imagine. But the Koreans have been extremely fond of it. They have been enjoying the unit quite a bit. I'm assuming Cure is no different, but we'll have to find out. So for now, though, everything's normal. Little Spore Crawler gets morphed in here because we're buying time for the Queens to come out. Interestingly enough, Rogue actually skipping out on any sort of Zergling production here. So this is him going straight Queens, no third hatchery. We do have some gas mining right now, but he didn't make any links. This is just like the olden days in Wings of Liberty, if you're also old like myself. It's a little bit weird though, because he's now playing a 2-base Zerg opener against a triple command center Terran. So Cure going for the very conventional, what looks like a 1-1-1. Yeah, so triple command center, probably Hellion Banshee, something along those lines. We'll have to see what he adds on after this. You can either go into barracks or you can go into factories. Both are perfectly viable right now. But Rogue is definitely doing something a little bit odd. So no Zergling speed, no Roach Warren, no Baneling Nest, no nothing. All we have is a lair coming up right now. This is about a 3-minute lair. It's very quick. Roach Warren on the back of this though, eventually. So he should be able to queue up the Roach speed here before too long, I suppose. But I would imagine cutting out a third hatchery in favor of a fast Roach speed is not really going to be paying out, well, most of the time, unless you have some sort of timing attack that's going to work out brilliantly. Obviously, though, any sort of Roach attack is always difficult when your opponent has Banshees out, so Cure going for the very safe approach here. Hellion Banshee, triple command center. If you control it well, it's technically safe against everything. It doesn't really have any real weaknesses. Evo Chamber in the meantime as well on top of the high ground. Reaper in the main. I love this actually here from Cure. Great scouter right here from the South Korean Terran. So he sees the quick lair, but he also sees that there's very likely no Spire, no Nydus network, nothing along those lines, and that's making him brave enough to now send out the Hellions. The little Reaper died, but he will be remembered because he gave him all the information that was really required. So really, are we doing this just for, like, vision? Additional barracks coming up here. So no mech shenanigans here for Cure. He is going to go straight into the additional barracks. Very, very fast infestation pit. Is this going to be like a 5-minute hive? 5-minute hive sounds ridiculous. He doesn't even have a third base up and going yet. Now, Cure's worker count is also not really that great. Mostly because he's been investing a lot into all of this infrastructure, right? So, double engineering bay right now. Those barracks are gonna finish up. Cloaking field here also just about done. For those benchies, roach speed is about to finish too, but what in the world are we gonna do with that? Infestation pit, though, hasn't really been used for anything yet. Looks like Rogue is sending the roaches around the long way. Infestation pit gets scouted. Speed roaches also do get seen here because of this scan. Overseer is still looking around. But yeah, Cure is playing this cautiously, not really using his units all too aggressively. Now he sees that there is a bit of a move out. Roaches immediately decide to scramble their ways back home. I feel like in theory, this build right here from Rogue is absolute garbage. Like, Terran can quite literally just make all of the economy they would ever want. But because Cure is giving him the benefit of the doubt, he is not really doing it, right? But, I mean, this is a little roach timing attack. It's really not that many units. He should be able to save the vast majority of the workers. And in theory, I don't think this should ever really work out for Zerg. But Rogue is playing this very cleverly. He's playing this as if he's going for an all-in. But that's really not the case. He's going into, well, a bit of a contamination, apparently, on the other side of the map. Inhibiting some of the factory production, fair enough. But he's going into a hive. He's just building up his economy. He's just doing so in an extremely slow manner. Usually, all Zerg build orders kind of rely on getting the economy out as quickly as possible. This is Rogue prioritizing tech, but then not really using the tech for anything. But because the opponent is giving him the benefit of the doubt, he's actually able to get away with it. And he has secured a small worker advantage because Cure is respecting it so much. I'm a little bit afraid, though, here for Rogue when that first big Terran timing attack goes across the map. And this will be an 8 Rex. Yep, we have 3 command centers, 8 barracks. Ooh, did he see that? Let me see. Yeah. Rogue does see the additional barracks production. A little sloppy here, actually, from Cure. Probably should be hiding that a little bit better. Either way, this is now giving Rogue all the information that he needs. He is effectively going up against a 3cc all-in here from Cure. Cure is going to be adding on just as many Marines here as possible. He can, of course, make a 4th command center eventually. I'm actually a little afraid, though, for Rogue when this Terran army does go across the map. Because the standard... Ooh, this is awesome right here for Cure. He finds a few of those infestors. Okay, 1 fungal does go down, but I mean, already 2 of the infestors have died. The standard in StarCraft 2, though, is the standard for a reason. Microbial Shroud? I don't think the Banshees are going to stick around, dude. I'm pretty sure, yeah, we're running the Queens through the little cloud. It will stick to them for a while, but... Anyways, if Rogue goes across the... Or if Cure, rather, goes across the map here in just a moment, I think it's going to hit like an absolute truck. This map, Ultra Love, is also really good for 8 Rex all-ins because you can just cross the distance so quickly. With the way that these bases are laid out, the distance that Cure needs to cover is relatively short. Now, it is important, though, that our Terran player does get a move on pretty soon. I don't think he'll be waiting for much longer, although technically you could wait all the way until 2-2. If Ultras spawn, life does get very, very fishy. What a strange opener right here from Rogue. I can't tell if it's good. I don't think it is. I don't think it is. It's kind of working out because Cure is giving him the benefit of the doubt. But even in this, like, best case scenario right here for Rogue, where his opponent is giving him all this respect, it's still not really that ideal for him. Now, a little Zergling run by is attempted, but looks like the Marines and the Marauders alone are going to be enough to body block. And in the meantime, the majority of the Terran army is crossing the bridges here in the middle of Ultra Love. Ultralisks are about to spawn. Hive upgrades are about to kick in with chitinous plating and adrenal glands, but Cure looks like he's reading this game very, very nicely. The fungal growths are decent, but Cure's army is looking so freaking big. What about the Zergling run by over at the 3rd, though? Maybe this can even the odds? It'll still be difficult for Zerg to clean this army up, but if he can deal damage in the meantime on the other side of the map, that may honestly justify it. Loads of SCVs are going down. This is probably just going to force Cure into even more of an all-in. Cure now just seconds away from 2-2. Liberator production has kicked in as well. He's not really adding on new workers. Instead, it looks to me like he just wants to add on additional unit production. In the meantime, though, the 4th hatchery of the Zerg has disappeared. A little bit of an Ultralisk hit squad as well. Goes across the map. Cure does lift up the command center, but he is smelling like he may have enough to just go ahead and win the game right here, right now with the army that he's got. Still, though, he's losing the entirety of the 3rd base. 19 SCVs have gone down. Rogue is going to need some really good fungals. I think the Ultras need to come home again, too. Yeah, they do. All right, if Rogue can clean up this army, he's got the Terran player exactly where he needs him to. Okay, he decides to move in right now, up towards the high ground, into a choke point. Not generally speaking the way you want to go. Some pretty good fungal growths as well, but the Terran army just stents its ground and absolutely massacres the Ultralisks. This is a messy game. The first half, very odd. The second half, though, extremely chaotic. And Cure gets the job done. So look, Rogue was experimenting with a strange start, and he sort of got away with it. But I really don't believe that Cure is gonna allow him to do that thing again a second time around. Although Rogue, of course, a very intelligent player, right? There's a good chance that he may open up with like a 2-base start once again, and then, well, suddenly mix it up with like quick mutas or something along those lines. If that is the case, I almost wonder if that Reaper Scout that he let slip into the main base was actually intentional. That would be 300 IQ. If he actually purposefully is now lulling his opponent into like a false sense of security. Because Cure may sort of autopilot now and then just assume that it's once more the exact same strat here from the opponent. Either way, we'll have to see. Across the board, in that scenario, I think it's pretty much always going to be a Terran advantage leading into the mid-game. And even though that really wasn't a very clean follow-up, you could see Cure a bit confused there, especially with the Zergling Ultra run by. He still navigated that good enough to obviously close the game out with a win, but I really don't think Cure could have anticipated the game to go like that. Now, it's a gasless hatch into a spawning pool here from Rogue, which immediately makes me believe that he will go for a 3rd hatchery much quicker this time around to probably take it before the Reaper can get across. It's something a lot of the Zerg players have been experimenting with lately. The main problem with this opener, though, for the Zerg, right, as we now do have the drones moving down to the low ground, is that you don't have Zergling speed anytime soon. And if Terran would go for like a double barrack start, so say there's like a 3 to 5 Reaper opener or like 2 to 5 Reaper opener with double barracks on the low ground, you just don't have Zergling speed. Like you're not going to be able to really stop the Reapers. So already a bit of a coin flip here for Rogue, and it's okay for him this time around because this is not a mass Reaper start. And he is going to be able to get away with a very quick 3rd hatchery long before... What? Really? Okay, that was weird. All right, long before the Reaper shows up. I mean, it was supposed to be long before. I think he saw like the idle worker notification and he sent it to a mineral line. A little bit of a slip up. Okay. Factory right now on the back of this. Reactor again, added into the mix. I wonder if actually Cure was planning on even playing Bio there, right? Like, in a very strange way, Bio is kind of like your comfort zone, right? When you need to fall back to something that feels nice and comfortable. Say, for example, you're really hungry. Everybody's got their go-to meal, right? And Cure, in a weird scenario, I can imagine, he's got his, like, go-to unit composition, and it isn't Terran mech. So even though in that previous game he did end up playing Terran Bio, I don't think he necessarily intended on going Terran Bio. It was mostly just a reaction to seeing the weird early game there from Rogue. And I think he decided to fall back to the good old comfy. It's like the warm woolen socks of Terran right there. Hey, look. Second factory. Behind the gas geyser. Okay. When I see a hidden factory like this, sort of hidden at the very least, okay, I always immediately think back of those innovation strategies from back in the day when he used to hide Blue Flame. I don't think those builds would work particularly well, but that's like the first thing that immediately goes through my mind. In reality, though, this is going to be a Cyclone build. Or as many of the StarCraft players like to call them, Cyclones. It's a bit of a clown fiesta. Especially on the ladder right now. Okay. Not a bad start, though, for Rogue, who does skip the Zergling speed here entirely in favor of a fast third hatchery and then also a Roach Warren. In a very strange way, Rogue has already gotten away with all of the greed. I like that he goes for a wall-off over here as well. One of the scary things, of course, is those units driving into your natural expansion, especially with Blue Flame. Anyways. The green light is on in the tech lab, as we are going to be upgrading the good old LEDs on the front of the Cyclones. Everybody knows that when you have LEDs in your computer case, it runs faster. That's just how it goes. No different here for the Cyclones. Blue Flame will probably not be too far behind. Third Command Center, though, already down on the low ground. Cure actually hits a small little, short little supply block, as he does have another supply depot finishing. I quite like the Widow Mine out front, actually. One of the scary moments, actually, is right now. Like, say there is, like, a big Zerg timing attack with Roach Ravager Ling, and that is something that Rogue actually brings out quite frequently, more so than the other top-level Zergs. You technically have all the units to deal with it, but it's very difficult to pull off. Like, Cyclones are great against those sort of openers, but obviously, you do need to have the numbers. Now, Hellions, ooh, careful. All right. Rogue actually kind of clumps them up a bit. Brenda is too thick to allow those units into the natural, but 7 drones right there for just, 3 of those Hellions. Not a big deal. The real stars of the show are these guys right over here. And in 15, well, now 10 seconds, their LEDs are going to turn on and they're going to look extra pretty. You want to see it? Bam! Oh, there it is. Targeting has been enabled. All right, so Rogue has already been greedy, though. 76 workers for him. He's going Roaches. He's going Infestation Pit. Now Zergling Speed is coming in. We've got the +1/+1 researching in the Evolution Chamber. I think Rogue has basically gotten everything he needs in order to deal with these units. Like, he's been so exceptionally greedy. If he can actually just produce army from here on out, he should have more than enough to actually try and deal with this. Still, though, these units tend to be scary. Blue Flame indeed on the back of this in the same tech lab. So Cure making sure that he can eventually continue roasting those workers. And it's nice to get some additional damage in general. In the Hellions, of course. Hive is already about halfway done. Infestors are really good. Fungal growth, obviously, really can shut down this sort of aggression quite nicely. Look at that. Good guy Cure decides to lock onto the rocks. Let me narrow the choke point a little bit. He's really not in a rush, though, it seems. Historically, whenever we used to see these Cyclones, they would just try to jump them on top of the Zerg army ASAP. Not really the case anymore nowadays. Cure is more than happy to take this slowly. Already, though, a Nydus network here is coming. Tunneling Claws is researching for the Roaches. Burrow is coming up as well here for the, well, entirety of the Zerg Swarm, but especially for the Roaches to be able to continuously run around. Maybe sneak up on some of these army troops as well. Nydus Worm into the main base. This is an easy scout right here for Cure, who's now, by the way, going into a Raven. Interesting. Cyclones are going to be sent back home just to try and deal with this. He does get a couple of Cyclone kills as well at the front. Roaches actually do pop out. And you know what? Surprisingly effective. A new Nydus Worm also comes up. Cure really not respecting the worm very well, it seems. Here's the Cyclones coming back home, though. And it is indeed going to be a bit of a circus here inside of the main base. The clown show has started. Burrow is nice, but it was anticipated. The Raven, of course, a mobile detector. And just like that, Rogue's army gets absolutely massacred. In the meantime, though, he does have a push happening over at the third base of the Terran player, too. 8 SCVs die in total. We may very well see one of the Roaches burrow underneath, but the Raven... Dude, I love the Raven here. Cure actually perfectly anticipating exactly when he needs it. That looked kind of dicey for him, but if you look at the resources lost, highly efficient. Only 2 Cyclones actually have died, or 3 rather, and I think 2 of them at the front, so not so much in the main. Okay. Ranged upgrade coming up here, though, for Rogue, who obviously has been mining off of 4 bases now for a while already. Effectively a full base up on the opponent, although not quite fully saturated. Planetary Fortress, though, is going to try and change that. Tunneling Claws once more kicks in. A Raven, though, is close by, and if that wasn't enough, we also have an infestation pit. We have a missile turret. Also, of course, a detector. The lock-on over here is making it all very difficult, and it's pretty clear here that Cure was fully prepared for this exact trick here from Rogue. I think Rogue was hoping he was going to be able to occupy the Terran for a while, so he could use the Tunneling Clawed Roaches to buy time to go up towards Lurker Tech. Now, Lurkers are coming, Vipers are already out, but the Terran army is now on the hunt. And this is a very scary army. Zergling run by though. Blue Flame Hellion should be able to clean this up eventually, especially if you morph them into Hellbats, which he does right now. What about the fight over here, though, in the top right-hand corner? Does he care about getting stuck? He's going to get stuck in the corner real quick, but it looks like Cure is happily driving his army straight in there. Auto turrets go down. We have an anti-armor missile as well. Zerglings once more, though, just like in the previous game, really making this a lot more committed for Cure than it needs to be. Cure's units, though, are just looking so freaking powerful. Is he just going to win this, even though he's, like, driven himself into the corner? Oh, my God, he is. He's got to kill the hatchery, too. I kind of thought that was exactly what Rogue needed, but okay. The Cyclones are bugged. And I'm kind of done pretending that they aren't. A lot of the StarCraft community is kind of, you know, starting to accept that the unit may never be hot-fixed. It certainly seems that Blizzard isn't looking to change it anytime soon, but yeah. So there's 2 bugs, okay? There's 2 bugs with the Cyclone, from what I understand. The first one is that they aren't getting as many damage upgrades from their armory attack upgrades as they are supposed to. So they are supposed to deal more damage with their regular missiles. Secondly, though, the lock-on ability, the cooldown of it, is significantly lower than what the note says it should be. So the tooltip says that it's a certain amount of time. It's significantly shorter than that. Meaning that the Cyclones can lock on over and over and over again repeatedly, and it's just allowing them so much damage. As a matter of fact, as you may have noticed in the previous game, Cure was only researching off of a single armory. He was only researching armor. He does not care about the base attack of the Cyclone, because 90% of its damage is coming from the lock-on ability. Well, we're gonna go for a double barracks, though. Right over here. Ley lines is the map. This is Cure. Looking at the build order in the previous game of the Zerg, he's like, yo, you went triple hatchery gasless? What about I open up with triple barracks? Rogue, though, again, anticipating it. I mean, Rogue is playing good StarCraft. Don't get me wrong, like, Rogue really isn't playing poorly. I really like his strategic choices here across the board. I think they're pretty intelligent. Not playing the same build from the previous games. Now anticipating that the opponent probably would be starting off with a double barracks. And I think, honestly, so that first game was a weird build order, really just to force the opponent to play bio, right? And then in the previous game, he went for that gasless start just to be as greedy as possible, really making himself set up perfectly to try and deal with any of that sort of aggression with Cyclones. And even though he had the perfect start, he still got utterly overwhelmed. And now, in this game, he has decided to go for the hatch gas pool. Because of the previous game, Cure is opening up double barracks, and when you open up double barracks, you generally don't go Terran mech. So I think, honestly, and maybe I'm reading into this a little bit too much, but I think Rogue's strategic decisions here in the early game are all just designed to try and not get the Terran to play mech. But if they are allowed to play mech, he'll just do it in, well, the most greedy way possible. Are we bunker rushing the third? I kind of love this. Little Zergling squad goes across. Rogue is gonna see the bunker here in just a moment. I thought this was, by the way, going to be Reapers to start things off. Not the case. Instead, it's going to be Marines. Honestly, getting this little hit squad into the bunker, though, is a really clever choice. Additional barracks go up inside of the main base, too. Yep, and the hatchery gets cancelled. Phenomenal start right here by Cure, who's not just gonna let himself get out-strategized in the early game. Oh, getting the creep tumor too is big. Honestly, you may be able to get another Overlord, maybe even another Council over at the third base. It's the alternative third right now coming up. I wonder if the Zerglings need to run over here, because those Marines still need to be respected. Rogue is not a disaster of an early game right here for Rogue. Maybe the reinforcing links can get the job done. I wonder if maybe Cure could have just right-clicked the hatchery down. He decided not to do it. Yeah. He decided to accept their fate. All right. Ultimately, though, Rogue does have his opponent where he wants him to be, and that is to, well, not be playing Terran mech. However, it's one of those other intelligent timing attacks right now on the Vecadis. I really like these openers, actually, from Terrans. We've been seeing them a little bit more as of late. It's pretty much impossible for Rogue to scout, and there's a good chance that Rogue is going to make the assumption now that this will be a third command center on the back of this. Oh my god, really? It's not a third command center. Instead, it's additional barracks with a secondary upgrade too. So it's Stimpack at the front, combat shields in the back. What about the Baneling bus, though? The idea is, I think, to go through the supply depot. It takes 5 of those Banelings to kill the depot, and this is a fantastic start to this particular attack for Rogue, as he snipes about half of the Marines before this even really gets going. Still, though, Stimpack finishes at the perfect moment, and obviously Cure did not go for a third command center. If there was a third CC, I think this game would be pretty much over right now. Not the case, though. Cure had the additional reinforcing units in the main, and that is going to make all of this very manageable for him. Now Rogue needs to go back to making workers again. Okay. Engineering Bay coming up for Cure as well. I think he originally wanted to go for a big push. He decides to only build up the Engie Bay here to about 98%, so he can still cancel it and get another way out of his base. Jimmy here spawned on the wrong side. Sorry, Jimmy, you're the bait. I think the plan right here for Cure originally was to go for a really big attack with Stimpack and combat shields, no medevacs, none of that. We're just going to try and win the game with a 2-base all-in. Now he's sort of forced into this position instead. Do we go third CC? I think we have to. Oh, it's a starport instead. I think we still go third CC too, man. Yeah, okay. The third command center, though, here for Cure is super duper late. Usually that would be long done at this phase in the game. Likewise, though, Rogue, because of the Baneling bust and the Council third, he's got a late lair. So that one started up right now. +1 armor here is going to be the only upgrade he can afford. We only have a single upgrade here as well for Cure, who decided to go for the attacking upgrade for the Marines. This Engie Bay will likely get cancelled in a moment. Maybe when the medevacs are out, or when he actually wants to leave the base. It all becomes a little bit awkward, though. How do you now decide when to move out here as Terran? How do you decide to stop making drones here as Zerg? Well, I think Rogue has effectively decided he's just going to make non-stop army for the most part. And maybe he's praying that the Terran's gonna move out soon. Yeah, I think this little spotter circling out here is meant to be seeing whether or not Terran's moving out, and then he's just gonna try and get the full wraparound? I think that's the plan. There is a third command center, however, Rogue. He's making a lot more Banelings. Oh no, Rogue is gonna go for what seems to be a desperation play. This entire series has honestly been like a few back-to-back-to-back desperation plays from Rogue. He's gonna hate seeing this third command center right about right now. There it is. This is exactly the opposite of what he wants. He's got Baneling speed started, but I mean, his economy is not nearly as where it could have been. If he really wanted to, he could have probably had 4 bases fully saturated at this point in time. Cure does not really seem to be intent on moving out just yet, other than with a little medevac drop. In the meantime, though, the Zerg army is starting to engage. It's an awkward timing, but you know what? This may be one of those brilliant moments here for Rogue. Good targeting, though, by Cure as he shuts down the Baneling seconds before they would have impacted on the entirety of the army. Still, though, there's too many Zerglings. Looks like the medevacs have decided to retreat back home. SCV losses once more over at the third base. Apparently, we're going to lower the depot to evacuate the SCVs on out of there, but it also, of course, allows the rest of the Zerg army right now to sneak in. What about these additional Banes? Well, Baneling speed is seconds away from being done, but it's not finished yet. I think that was totally fine for Cure. That looked incredibly scary for him, but I think he navigated that pretty much perfectly. Playing against Rogue is a bit of a nightmare. You never really know exactly what to expect. But as the dust settles after all of these fights, Zerg has committed a lot more to these engagements than you have here as the Terran, and he's going to be able to add on some additional barracks, and that's exactly what we've done. Look at that. We're going effectively now into a 9 Rex all-in. Normally you go for an 8 Rex all-in, but apparently now we're going for 9. Kira has decided that the advantage he's created for himself is big enough that he can, at least in his mind, guarantee the win by going for one big push. It's a ballsy play, especially because Zerg's creep obviously has been completely uncontested. We do have some Baneling landmines here. Those Marines don't know it, but they have escaped death extremely narrowly. All right, let's see. Push up towards the high ground here. Snipes down the creep tumor. Maybe pick up and get on out of there. Yeah, it's difficult. You want to go for an all-in here. He decides to follow it up with a 4th command center. I can't blame him, but I think the plan was to go for an all-in. The problem is he has to carve his path through the creep. So just in case, there is a 4th command center to fall back to. Oh. 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 He wants everything. I was gonna say, I think that's the best case, man. All right. You see Jimmy right there making a little jump with his arms spread. Still though, this Terran army is looking absolutely massive. Honestly, Rogue might be thinking already about making an evacuation base up north, because I don't believe that a lot of his bases are gonna be able to survive. Then again though, this is looking like an army that is stoppable. A couple Banelings here as well on the left. A few Infestors on the production tab. Okay, Hydralisk Den 2. He would love to go into Lurkers, but Lurkers just feel so far away. Reinforcing Medivac spots the accidental Baneling there. Second hit squad of units as well right now, moving out onto the map. And if you don't pay attention to the supply count for a little bit, look at it again now. Cure is miles ahead as far as the army size goes compared to Rogue. His army is honestly looking like it might just be able to win the game right here, right now. Half of his army might be capable of killing the entirety of the Zergs. Cure going for a big split push. I find this ambitious because it means he has to micro in multiple angles all at the same time. But that's what he's doing right now, splitting up north, pushing down south as well. Picks up some of the units here, at least as long as there's room inside of the Medivacs. Couple reinforcing ones do show up. Fungal growth, though, right over here. That's a perfectly placed fungal right there for Rogue. Still, the supply count is not deceiving us. Queens show up. He's trying to target fire down as many of those Medivacs as possible. Liberator production has kicked in as well right now for Cure, who's, by the way, followed this up as well with double upgrades. So 2-2 is not too far away from finishing with the +2 for these bio units already done for the attacking upgrades. And now, suddenly, even though these fights went, well, definitely not according to plan, it seems like he is still able to overwhelm the Zerg. He is swarming the swarm, and just like that. I mean, Cure, his Terran versus Zerg has never really been considered to be that good compared to his Terran versus Protals, and especially, well, Terran versus Terran as well. Like, but he played phenomenally well here. It's one of those series that you look at and at least the vibe you're getting, you know, like if this is like the only ZVT you ever see, you look at this and you're like, what do you even do against Terran? Like, how exactly do you counter Terran? We see Zergs winning against Terran all the time, so that's not really the problem, but Cure is making Zerg look pretty underpowered in this type of game, which says a lot about his performance.